Okay, here we go, girls. The first thing, you don't have to write this down if you want, because it'll all be in the video on the O-Drive and on YouTube, okay? So, two quick type of diagrams, two quick type of graph, two quick type of chart. One is called a box and whisker. These things are very simple. They look like this. These things I'm drawing now, they're called the whiskers. This thing is obviously called the box. It has a scale, like you always draw it underneath the number line. Doesn't matter where the numbers are. And this fella here is the maximum in the set of data. This fella here is the minimum, so that's a 0. This fella here is called the median. And this fella here is a technical thing you haven't learnt before. It's called the upper quartile, but it's very simple. It's just the median of the second half of the list. Okay? This thing is called the lower quartile. For our example, that's a 2. You haven't seen that before, but I'm telling you it's very simple. It's just the median of the first half of the list. So I'll give you an example. 1, 2, 5, 7, 9, 13. I've very kindly put them in order for you. What's the maximum? 13. So it's 5. Okay, so the maximum goes there using the scale above. What's the minimum? 1. That goes there. What's the median? There are 2 middle numbers. What's halfway between them? A 6. So it goes there. Now, what's the median of the first half of the list? It's 2 halves. First half, what's the median of that half? Somebody say it? It's 2. And what's the median of the second half of the list? No. There we go. That's our box and whisker. Okay? Now, you don't have to know quartiles for next week's test. Okay, I'm just telling you what they are so you know what this thing is called, a box and whisker. Okay? Now, this other type you've seen 1,000 times. Called a scatter diagram. Okay, they look like this. Okay? Every single time you put a little cross on or a dot, you're actually telling somebody 2 things, because every time you put a cross on, you can ask how high is it. You can also ask how far over to the right it is. So, for example, if there were like 2 tests, maybe this is the calculator and this is the non-calculator. Every time I put a cross on, it tells you what somebody got in the calculator and what somebody got in the non-calculator. So it looks like in the non-calculator, maybe this person got 90%. Is that a 9? And 30% for the calculator. Why do I say that? Because each of my grid squares is 10%. Is everyone clear on that? Classic thing you have to do is put a line of best fit on. Now, some people mistakenly think that a line of best fit has to go through all the crosses. They're wrong. In fact, it doesn't need to go through any of the crosses. A good rule of thumb is that it should have roughly half as many above as half as many as below. So this one is going through, I think that went through 3. This one, and this one. How many has it got above the line? 2. How many has it got below the line? 1. So that's roughly right. Okay, but it doesn't need to go through any. Using one of these, so this is called a line of best fit, we often ask you to make a prediction. So I said, if somebody got 40% in the calculator, what do you think they got in the non-calculator? Just go to 40% on the calculator axis, scoot up, scoot across, so it looks like they got 80%. Okay, I'm sure you've seen that in science. Should put arrows on to show it goes on a bit further than I've drawn it. Finally, you often get asked to describe this. Very simple, just say the higher they got in the non-calculator, the lower they got in the calculator. This is a pretty unrealistic example. I can't think of any reason why that would be the case. If you want to use a fancy term, say it's a negative correlation. If it's the other way around, like for this, this would be a more realistic example, and here's my line of best fit. Going to have 4 circles above, 3 below. That's called positive correlation. In other words, the higher they got for calculator, the higher they got for non-calculator. You don't have to use the fancy term. You can just say the higher they got for calculator, the higher they got for non-calculator. Don't move yet, please. Finally, there's some patterns where there's no good term for them. So if by some crazy thing all your dots came out like that, it's no good word to describe that, but it's clearly a pattern because it looks like a circle. It's unlikely to happen in the GCSE, but I'm just saying that in real life you can get crazy things like that. If that happens, you'd be famous, right? Because you discovered a pattern that nobody had a name for. Okay? So, positive correlation, negative correlation. This little line indicates a prediction. Okay, you may go.